Alright, welcome everyone. This is the very first Gulf Coast Sun guest panel with Lincoln Counselor Ninja,
Hello, everyone.
former Fremont MP and Speaker Koopa,
Good evening.
and myself, now Delegate Weatherboy. Uh, Today's topic is what in the fuck is going on? It's been complete chaos the past 2 days as far as Atlasia goes. We had the fourth largest party collapse in a matter of less than a day, and that was followed up by several more incidents of drama, including both Labor retaking the House majority through weird means, I'm gonna say. I'm not saying that it's illegal or anything, it's definitely legal, it's just weird. Uh, and then also something similar in the Southern Chamber, except that it wasn't quite as drastic, I don't think. Uh, we're gonna start off with what happened last night and early this morning. So, yesterday at about 2 p.m. Central Time or 3 p.m. Eastern, Tachenka deregistered, which left PSOL or PSOL, I'm not sure how you actually pronounce it, as chair of the Green Party. Officially, this was after Tachenka said that he was going to step back for a little bit before he just resigned completely. And that was followed about 12 hours later by Representative Lackey Gigar. I just call him Lackey, and I think everyone
Yeah,
does too.
yeah.
In my head, it's a soft G, like Jigar, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what
We'd
I say.
have we'd have to ask him. uh, so he deregistered, which left his seat vacant. So about an hour later, Piesel said that he was handing in his resignation as chair of the Green Party, effectively dissolving it. Um, Now, this was a very quick turn of events. Again, only 13 hours between Tachenka deregistering and PSOL quote unquote effectively dissolving the Greens. They're not completely dead, but it's much like the old Progressive Union Party where they're just going to end up falling off the rolls eventually. But there were some things that he said that were weird that we'll get to, but first to Koopa, because you were, of course, the founder of the Green Party. I was wondering what your thoughts were on this party that you created just falling apart so quickly. I know you haven't been a part of it for several weeks now, but I'm just wondering if you imagined anything like this happening when you first created it.
All right, thank you for having me here. But anyways, like for the first few days of me, like, creating the Green Party and having everyone join in and, start talking about what we want to do as a party, I started to notice that what we were doing kind of created a sort of house of cards almost, where just like the simplest breeze can just knock the entire stack over and kill a party. And so I don't know. It with like internal struggles and like the composition, how the party was functioning. It was oh shoot sorry. But anyways, so I noticed that like with all these like internal party struggles and like all this whatnot. I think the purpose of the Green Party has really gone against what I created it to do, because like I created it to like not really to like be competitive and whatnot, but more so like be a party about environmentalism and also standing for what you believe in. But I think like the more and more of other people, started to join, I think it started to just become a sort of like anti-labor left-wing party, which that wasn't my original goal. And I don't know, I think it's just a Cobra effect. And I think with all these like clashes within the party, I think like there wasn't really one clear goal as to where the party should go. And I think that sort of struggle left it weak, and something like this was bound to be inevitable.
All right. Yeah, I can see that there was. I do remember, based on some other conversations that I had that with Tachenka and PSOL at some point, that you were not happy about the direction that the party was going. They were saying that you didn't want cooperation with the DA, but I don't think that that's actually true.
It's kind of true. Like I didn't want the party to like be cooperating with like all these like right wing parties. I my main idea was to have it kind of be like its own separate thing that wasn't, but I think as time marched on, it slowly started to, become like a DA Federalist aligned party that was like for left wingers who really hated, Pericles and labor. And I don't know, I just think that like the cooperation with labor and just a whole bunch of stuff that the Green Party was doing, like that I don't know, I just didn't really think it was that good.
All right. Let's take a look at PSOL's statement during his resignation last night, because he left a very long post here. So he said, let me see. This party went down in a thud instead of a whimper, and the cause of its complete collapse, and it is a complete collapse, can be contributed to me not imposing an iron fist from the very beginning. Do you have any real thing to add on that? Just from
I didn't think that the point of the Green Party was to have an iron fist at any point. If I'm reading you correctly, Koopa.
Yeah, you are.
So it sort of went against everything he was doing, which is unfortunate, but it turned out that way. And of course, that post included a lot of somewhat disturbing revelations about his plan to use everyone and subvert everyone, and his schemes to make alliances with people and never having any intention to hold them up at all.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is especially important to say here that PSOL said in his post was that he said, as Koopa's former career was stagnant and she was a pretty face to put in front of the cameras, I approached her. She left over my, in parentheses, totally right pragmatism, and then I tried getting Tachenka as the face. So he's basically saying that he was trying to use you as like a figurehead or a facade to hide behind or something. Is that at all like anywhere close to true, Koopa?
I mean, it's kind of true, I guess, but not like in the way that he phrased it, because like the way that the Green Party was created, and I've said this a lot on Blog Court, but the way that the Green Party was created, I came up with the idea and I told Peacell about it, and so we kind of like co-created it almost, but I don't know. I think phrasing it as if like they chose me as like the mascot rather than like, oh hey, I'm the founder and whatnot. I don't know. I don't really think that's the most accurate phrasing, but I think there is at least some kind of truth to that statement.
Yeah, and I can kind of see that with Tachenka now, like looking back on it, maybe that's more accurate for him. Uh,
He did always appear to me to be the moderating force amongst the Green Party.
I did notice that he was always the one who was like, let's not go overboard in attacks to either side.
Not necessarily the moderating force on ideology, but the moderating force in leadership and sort of the more reasonable mind. And maybe some of it's
Yeah,
my own bias because I've talked to him a lot. I guess I'd probably consider him one of my Atlas friends now. He's a pretty cool guy, but he definitely was, he wasn't as crazy as Peasall was, to put it bluntly.
Yeah,
uh,
I of course, not all the viewers know this, but PSOL has been banned from the Atlasia channel on the main Atlas Discord or Lock Cord, since it's run by Lock, because he was making so many personal attacks, and I don't know what it was that exactly pushed him over the line. I do remember that there was one specific thing, but
He told ASV to die in a ditch. That's officially what he was banned for.
right.
yeah.
Yeah, he's very fiery and not always in a good way.
The die in a ditch comment specifically comes from the Senate election in Fremont that happened recently, where Tachenko ran as the Green candidate against Ted Bessel from the Labor Party, and ASB never fully committed support to Tachenko, and he didn't direct his voting bloc towards them. So then Peasall was angered over this, apparently.
Well, according to ASV, because he has said this, I think both to you and me, Ninja, that was mostly because PSOL was just endlessly insulting him, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, it
So
makes sense.
so it just kind of was insults and became more insults. Is the best way to put that, I guess. Um, all right, let's go on to the next paragraph, saying, "Let me state that it was my intention to stab Fed plus DA every single step of the way. It was supposed to happen after the elections, but oh well." So that's something that I don't find completely surprising, but is still very interesting because I never got the impression that we were really stabbed in the back by the Greens ever.
Well, I think that when it comes to this, I probably have the most, knowledge about what was going on because there being that, I'm the second highest ranking in Democratic Alliance, of course, and we did have a three-way group chat between Democratic Alliance and Federalists and Greens. And there's just always this sense that it was like we always said that we were together and we were allies, but we never really quite were allies. And I always felt like as sort of the person in the middle being in Democratic Alliance, like I was always trying to have to get them to play nice. And perhaps the red flag should have come when we were all like, okay, we're going to vote for Joseph Cow for speaker. And that was going to be the thing. We were going to vote together in the speaker election. But they kept trying to come up with reasons not to, it seems like. And I always told them off, no, it doesn't, it's fine. You should, and they were like, oh, well, I don't know if it looks good. And I'm like, well, it's a nonpartisan position. And of course, this election would come back to create this whole mess in the first place. But it was odd. It never quite felt like a cohesive alliance.
Yeah, I always saw it as like a very loose, broad, non-labor front. I don't want to say anti-labor front, uh, because I don't think it's fair to say that we were specifically anti-labor. There were plenty of people in all the parties, including me, that were like more anti the current labor leadership, but some of those lower down, some of the new and current representatives are completely fine. So I don't know where I was going with that. That it was not very organized opposition, or not very organized front.
Definitely was not a very organized front. Aside from the only time we really had any sense of organization was in the House election when we did work together to do all the math correctly and all that and pull off the miraculous victory that would, only last 2 freaking days.
Well, I I think that it was always going to be hard to have again a broad front that includes both people like Fatagan on the right and then people like Peasol on the left. It was always
Of course,
kind of difficult to do that.
of course, it was. I always felt like I was having to try to get the Greens and the Federalists to play nice because I was the guy on the middle. As the Greens always played nice with us, and the Federalists always played nice with us, but the Greens and the Federalists didn't exactly get along. Peasall would say bad things about Federalists in the group chat, and I'd have to be like, "Can we not?" And it's almost like babysitting. I don't know.
I think that's fair to say. Um. So, yeah, going back to PSL's post or Peasol, I keep alternating between them. That his goal was to try and quote alienate moderate labor voters enough to make the Green Party obsolete with the second. So I don't know if I'm reading this right, but I think what he's trying to say is he's trying to make labor more left wing, and he was trying to split labor in a way and have the moderates go somewhere else, presumably DA, but potentially to a new party altogether. But I'm just wondering what either of you, what your thoughts are on that strategy. Do you think it could have worked out ever, or do you think it was never going to work out and was stupid or something?
Yeah, it was a real big brain strategy, obviously. Like, it's really confusing and convoluted to me that you want to push a party in a certain direction by creating a new party entirely. I find it rather strange.
It reminds me of several splinter parties in real life that never got actual traction. Uh, which, thinking about Peasol, considering that, just, what was it, 2 days ago, he was like, hating on the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, I think that's what it's called, for endorsing Joe Biden. Because something about Joe Biden being conservative. It seems to me like he was bringing that exact same type of view into Atlasia, that anyone that's even slightly right of me should not be, I shouldn't work with them, sort of thing.
Except he did, even if his intention was to stab us in the back anyway. It's sort of like hollow statements if you're gonna do it anyway.
Koopa, you have any input on that?
No, pretty much all of what I wanted to say was said by Ninja, so.
So there were other points of his speech that were, he was comparing the Greens pairing up with the Feds and DA to the PVDA, which is the Belgian communists, which Wacky is a part of, to join forces with Nazis. It's a weird thing. I don't think that there's much that needs to be said there. That's just completely idiotic. we can go on to the final bit here, saying that my only regret was permanently killing Koopa's political career. What do you have to say about that, Koopa?
Yeah, I mean, when I first, skimmed through the post because I wasn't gonna read the whole thing, I saw like my only regret was, killing Cupid the Quick's career. And I don't know, I just like in my head laughed so hard at that. Cause like I don't know. I don't really think that much of the Green Party's failure has really attached to me, as I jumped ship pretty early in the party's lifespan, and a lot of the decisions made by the Green Party weren't entirely on my part. So I don't know. I think even if, like, say Chenka or maybe even like Kijigar were to come back to Alasia, I think they would also have, like, the chance to build back their career. So I mean, I think besides Peaceful, obviously, I don't think anyone's career was permanently damaged by the Green Party, just to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, because this whole post, uh, I think that it became a pretty clear sentiment that no other political party really wanted to associate themselves with Peaceful. Not even Labor, really, from what I was reading from other Labor officials. Not that they would like kick him out, but that I got the impression that they wouldn't support him for anything, if he ran for anything.
It seems to me like Koopa's been left in a better position career-wise than any of the rest of them. Now you're in charge of the Peace Party, and hopefully that goes better for you.
Yeah, and your move to the south was quite interesting. We'll get to that later when we talk about the Chamber of Delegates. I don't want to call it a debacle because it's not really, but that's the closest I can come to saying that. I don't know how to put it.
Situation.
Situation, yeah, that's better.
I think that in the aftermath of this, Peace Sall's definitely damaged goods. Like, who's gonna ever want to associate with him again? I think Tachanka could come back if he wants to, because people actually like him, and I mean, he's a cool guy. Lackey, I'm not sure if he'd have a future career or not, because he's clearly wasn't on the same level of Peace Sall, and I'm kind of more sympathetic towards him than I used to be in the past. But he does have a certain untrustworthiness to him. This goes back quite a while, but this was back like a year ago. Now, I was elected to the Lincoln Council on the Liberal Party line, and I was going to try to form a big coalition, almost sort of like what was going on before, but a like proto version of it, with me and him were two bigger factors in it, and I thought it was reliant on getting the moderate Laborite to defect to my side, so it was still unlikely to happen. But in the end, when it came down to the election, Lackey-Gigar did not even vote for me for chancellor of the Lincoln Council, which sort of pissed me off, and it made me quit the game for a little while. And so I sort of almost could have seen this is going. They attacked him for the whole like, you switched your vote and you made deals and whatever, even though I don't think that the speaker election should be considered such a big deal. So I mean, I have a similar history of that, so I maybe could have seen that coming, really.
Yeah, I do feel bad for Lackey, especially because he does have some actual mental. I don't want to put it like he's crazy or anything, but like
Yeah,
some.
I mean, he is on the autism spectrum, so like he's not like crazy or dumb or anything, but like I don't know, he does act differently than you would normally expect. But like then again, like he's not the first Atlasian politician on the autism spectrum, but Then again, I don't really know. I'm not really a neurologist, so.
I mean, just not being in a good place mentally can affect what you do in Atlasia. I'm not on the autism spectrum, but I have dealt with a lot of shit lately for like over a year now. And it has sometimes come out in the way I've done things in Atlasia. It's made the reason why it was largely the reason why for a while they tended to be very on and off because I just emotionally wasn't very stable, and that translated to me not being very stable in Atlasia. So I have more sympathy for him than Peasol, who I don't really feel bad for him.
Yeah. I mean, like in the same way, like kind of like both with like you and like the whole emotional thing. And I'm not on the spectrum, but like I do have a nonverbal learning disorder, which is like similar to Asperger's in a way. And so, but I don't know, like I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, I do understand how like all this kind of stuff can affect your behavior within the game, but I don't know. Go on, Overboard.
All right, so that's the end of PSL's post. The rest of it was basically saying something about how the election was a failure of Labor, not the left, or something like that. It was really weird. But what happened afterwards was that he switched to Labor at about 3:10 a.m. CDT. And then about 10 minutes later, he switched back to the Greens and attempted to appoint himself representative, which that's just
You can't really do that. Although I will say I have been an exception to that rule at one point, way back in summer of 2018, when I was a chairman of Progressive Union Party. There was a fad that went around for a little while in like July of 2018, where everyone did these duels, where if one of the people lost, they would have to register in a different party. So I lost a duel to Vern, and I had to register in the Federalist Party afterwards for a little while. And when I came back, though, like everyone just still decided I was chair, even though technically, legally, you could have argued that I wasn't. But I do think this is a different situation here, where it's not like it was just a joke, right? And I was obviously still chair, whereas Peasol. And I also never made any house appointments while I was chair of Progressive Union, so there wasn't really much of a legal question anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Peasol literally said that he was resigning as chair, and even if he hadn't said that, he did voluntarily switch parties like that, which, when you're trying to appoint someone, that's... I don't even think in the Green bylaws it allows the chair of the Green Party to do that. So that's...
Yeah, they had they had to vote on it, didn't they?
Yeah, that's why the Great Green Invasion happened. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So after that whole mess, I thought that was just going to be the end of the drama for the day. I posted the new issue of the Gulf Coast Sun. I come back from my classes at like, I don't know, 3 o'clock, and this shit has hit the fan with Pericles saying that apparently the DA is trying to rig the gubernatorial election because they appointed me. Which I'm just going to ask you all, and I'm not going to put any input on this. Do you think that that's anywhere remotely true? And I know you
No.
might be a little bit biased, but
I mean, obviously, you could argue I'm biased, but no.
and Koopa.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Pericles was claiming that the DA was trying to rig the gubernatorial election for Muad'Dib by appointing me. Do you think that's anywhere close to the truth?
I don't really think that's really a claim that has a lot of merit to it, and even if it's true, it requires a lot of assumptions. So I'm not going to say whether it's like completely true or false, but I don't know. It seems like something that's come out of thin air in order to like explain why things happened, I guess.
Based on
I can kind of see that. There was the whole thing with MB suggesting me to TMTH, and I'm just thinking of this, like trying to think of it in his mindset, that to in his view that I would be the most left wing person that TMTH could reasonably appoint, so that the only vote that would really change would be the gubernatorial vote. And even that's questionable. Because even though, some people will say, oh, DA is closet right wingers, I'm still very much a left winger. I think that's been kind of obvious. I've tried to tone it down in the NPC elections, but that's mostly to try and keep good faith between the members of the DA. I have my own views, you all have yours, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. But I think that's why MB suggested me specifically. But I do think it was interesting that I actually was thinking that he would have motioned for Koopa, because, after all, you had just moved down into the south. You remember Peace. It was pretty obvious to me, at least, that you were angling for that seat. I don't know how pissed off you are about me taking it.
Oh no, I'm not pissed at all because I mean I'll either take like the other vacant seat if there is one, or I might just run for house. So I'm fine.
based on all my experience, the whole trying to rig the election thing is just not something that TMTH would do. Like, I've worked with him a lot. I worked with him very closely when he was president, over a year ago now, actually, when I was a member of his cabinet. And we worked together a lot as members of Democratic Alliance. I think Weberboy can attest to this too, that he's a very dignified person. He's a good guy, and not the kind of person who likes to do that sort of thing.
I think he's been one of the strongest voices against any, shenanigans, against any, crazy type shit, like what the Greens were trying to do. Like, we try not to talk behind people's backs, that sort of thing, because that's one of the things that I think most of us in DA are not happy with the labor leadership, is the scheming and talking behind people's backs. And we try not to do that, and he's been one of the best examples of someone who has not been doing that. I don't know how else to put that.
Even if you don't trust TMTH, MB himself came out and said that yes, he did recommend you and that he didn't have a problem. And I mean, this is mostly just a narrative that Pericles is pushing, even against the wishes of his own party chair.
Yeah, this is something else that's I'm honestly surprised that he hasn't already called to try and recall Joseph Cow as speaker.
Well, the reason is because we'll get to this. Of course, they took the majority back, but you have to have a 2/3 majority to recall a speaker.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if that was like an actual vote that they have or not. I haven't checked the laws with that in a while, so I don't know if they changed.
And of course, we'll get into the speakership thing, unless you want to get into it now. I can, but
I think it would be good to get into that now, just as a slight segue to the Southern situation, and then we will wrap it up. So, one of the reasons why Lackey left is that he was getting attacked quite a lot. At least that's what he said. And that was mostly for his vote to have Joseph Cow become Speaker, which I thought was expected for the past couple of weeks. I mean, I even wrote an article about it, and I featured Joseph Cow says, presumably the next Speaker of the House, as the caption, uh, because that seemed obvious to me. He's a principled, moderate voice who wouldn't hijack the position for partisan purposes.
I mean, it's not a partisan position anyway, and it's really difficult to hijack the position for partisan purposes.
I realize that, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, honestly, there's this like obsession lately with who, especially with this election, with who's becoming the speaker, and we got to elect our guy to speaker. And I mean, it's not a partisan position. It was always intended to be a nonpartisan, simply administrative position. I remember back in the day when I was the first time I was representative, when Yankee was speaker, we all used to just always vote for him because he was the best speaker. And I also remember when I was speaker, I was elected with 8 of 9 votes. So it used to be a lot more just sort of like, we vote for the person who we think would be a good speaker. And it's become so hyper partisanized lately. And I don't understand why it has to be, because you don't gain anything from holding the speakership.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. There was a lot of attacks from I think it was mostly labor leaning people and PSOL himself on Lackey for quote unquote voting a right winger into power type shit, which
Like when a couple of years ago, everyone voted for Yankee for speaker and no one cared. And in the Senate, they all voted for Yankee for president pro tempore too. So that's ridiculous. Honestly, it's just ridiculous that you're going to go on about somebody for voting a right winger for a nonpartisan position.
I mean, and he's not even that right wing. He's pretty much the most centrist of the Federalists that were elected. I mean, obviously Jessica is firebrand hardliner. I mean, that's part of why she lost in the Chamber of Delegates election, was her not so subtle but subtle anti-gay views. But we're going off on a tangent again. That's
We'll see how that turns out.
So
it's been a while since we had someone like that.
Yeah, that's why Lackey left. So then that was followed up by a number of laborites joining the Greens, and I mean, I think that they used this word themselves, so I'll use that same wording, hijacking the Greens, and voted to have Adam Griffin be the next representative, which, and I've said this in text chat before, that overall I think, other than the speakership vote, ideology-wise, like on bills, they probably would have voted pretty similarly, if not, like 98% the same. So I think overall, like, in terms of an ideological sense, the House has not shifted really. But of course, this does mean that Labor does hold the majority in the House, which flips it, despite the fact that they got 48% of the vote. Which, again, it's
a majority that they did not win.
Majority that they did not win. Although I do get the argument that, oh, if the Greens didn't exist, they would have voted for the labor right. I do get that argument, kind of, but it doesn't change the fact that they didn't get a majority of the votes. But it's not a huge deal in my eyes. It's a little but I don't think it's any worse than yeah, I don't think it's any worse than what I did.
I mean, we all know what they would have said if DA did the same thing, which we could have, theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically we could have. We could have.
Not that we would have, because we don't
Yeah.
do things like that.
We could have flooded the Greens and voted for, I don't know,
Me.
for you, for RC, for Winfield, I guess. For me, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, we'll just create we'll create a vacancy in the Southern Chamber like 12 hours after it was filled.
Yeah, it makes again. What are your thoughts on that situation, Koopa, with Griffin becoming representative now?
No, I mean, first of all, I really like the name that they came up with it. The Great Panty Raid of 2020 is honestly one of the best names I've ever heard for anything in Atlasia. But
I will admit that was. I will admit that was actually that is actually a kind of great name. I don't know who wrote the article actually, but it's already on Wiki.
Yeah, I think Truman wrote the article. But anyways, that's getting off topic. Anyways, about the actual raid, I would normally have a problem with such a thing. However, Green was already dead at that point, and there wasn't really any cohesive leadership to decide who should become the next, chair and appointee and whatnot. And so I think really it's less of raiding an already living party and more just raiding the carcass of what was the Green Party, and I think that kind of justifies it.
I mean, odds are there would have been an election for the one seat that Labour probably would have won anyway, but...
Yeah, that's probably I assume that they didn't want that possibility of an upset because Labour plus
that would have been democracy.
Yeah, third term for Pericles.
Yeah, we know that's not happening.
Yeah, at this point, it's not happening. I mean, obviously, I don't see that happening unless there's some serious falling out between MB and Pericles, which isn't going to happen at this point, I don't think.
Unless it happens because of the whole TMTH thing, where MB is on TMTH's side and Pericles is all like,
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But I don't think it's a big enough issue to really cause a primary to happen.
Well, there's a primary happening anyway, but that's mostly because HCP and DTC are running. Okay, I don't want to say that DTC's is a meme campaign, but it kind of is.
They're not likely to win.
HCP's is obviously a meme, but they always are. And I mean, you know me, I love the memes. I've memed in the past. I mean, almost exactly a year ago was my run with Pyro that got 2 votes. Me and Pyro.
I did a run-in candidacy in October 2018, me and AZ, throwback to June. It got 2 votes too.
Yeah, me and Pyro, our write-in campaign of on a furry transhumanist platform. Fucking the dumbest shit. Okay, it's not the dumbest shit, but I mean, it probably got the closest to me running for my actual views that I have. It's just that I threw in some jokes in there. I will admit that in the debate I was basically just a diet John Dool. Yeah, my lines are
back in the 15 million way election.
Yeah, but again, we're getting off topic. We keep getting off topic.
I mean, isn't that bound to happen with this sort of?
Yeah, it is. It is. And either way, we've only been on for about 45 minutes. That means that we have about 15 minutes to talk about the southern situation, which we kind of talked about a little bit, but now going into the specifically what's going on with the gubernatorial race with I guess really it's now just the main three candidates. Did Brigante get any votes yet?
I don't believe he has.
I was going to say, so it's really just the three. So it's Muad'Dib, former governor, or was he governor? I don't even remember. I think he was, right?
To West Midlander, and then West Midlander switched parties.
Right. Okay. So he almost became governor. Right. That was by
Really close election.
yeah. That
I
was
was
by a
actually
margin.
that was during the one time that I was actually in labor. I remember it was sort of like there was a lot put into that election. I mean, it was just sort of like, nope.
Yeah. So former almost governor then Muad'Dib, Deputy Speaker Tim Turner, and current delegate Thumb are the three main candidates. And right now, I don't know what the tally is because I think TMTH did switch their vote to Tim Turner,
He did, yeah.
and not all of the delegates have voted yet. So I think it's like 3-2-2 if you go by complete partisan, uh, you know, loyalty. But I don't know if any of the Federalists might also vote for Tim or for Thumb. I don't know. I don't control them. I have no idea. Uh, so just a generic question for you two: who do you think is going to end up winning this uh, gubernatorial election within the Chamber of Delegates? And who do you want to be governor of those three?
I honestly have no clue who's going to win. There's not a clear picture. It's like two for Tim Turner, two for Thumb, and at the moment, is that what it is?
Uh,
I think it is.
and one for Muad'Dib if TMTH is
TMTH's original vote was for Muad'Dib, but now he's one of the two for Tim
is
Turner.
it is that how you pronounce it? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Who knows?
So many people's names I don't know how to pronounce.
Freaking Atlas
They're
names.
gonna end up yelling. They're gonna end up yelling at me. Uh,
You know what the three of us can say we all have in common is that it's easy to pronounce our names.
Koopa, what are your thoughts? Who do you want to win out of those three? Tim, Thumb, and Muad'Dib, and who do you want to win? Who do you think will win, and who do you want to win?
Okay, so like who I think will win, I think it's probably going to go to a Laborite. If gun to my head, I had to pick like one person, I guess I would say Tim Turner, but I don't know, it could go towards anyone really, but my money is on a Laborite. But like as for who I want, I mean, I might be a little biased because I want, someone in the chamber so I could fill a vacancy, but I mean, looking at just policy and like how they'd run the region, I think maybe Muad'Dib because he's very eccentric and good about running things, or maybe someone like Tim Turner or Thumb because they're experienced and they have good policy positions.
You literally named all three of the candidates.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know. But like, yeah. I mean, I kind of want like Thumb or Tim Turner, but once again, that's mainly because of my bias.
I can see that. Again, I feel kind of the same way. I'm kind of split three ways on this. I have worked with Tim Turner in the chamber before. I voted for him for speaker before back in January. and he seems to be a perfectly reasonable and active voice that will, with all the chaos going on, not just as far as Atlasia drama goes, but also with Corona and all that, that he'd be a good steady hand. I also think Muad'Dib would be good in a similar way, that he's active and actually gives a actually gives a fuck. Thumb is the only one that I'm not 100% sure of, but that's because my experience with him has been somewhat limited, which is kind of funny considering that he was in my top three for vice president back when I ran in October of 2018. It was it was
Oh, yeah,
it was it was him. It was him, Ninja, and MB, and of course MB won, not only because of other reasons, but also because the logo was just great. Look, you
well,
cannot say that that logo was not amazing. All right.
well, out of the three of them, I've had the most experience with Bum, since Bum was previously one of the founding members of the Montfortian Party. And I did appoint him to my House seat when I had felt like I had to resign that seat because it was just too much back then. Pericles will go on about how I'm a failure, but it was just too much to be Secretary of Internal Affairs and Speaker of the House and have school. Ultimately, I was doing too much stuff. But regardless, I still know him amazingly well. But I think they'd all be good governors. I don't think that there's really any bad choices among them.
Yeah, I think um a lot of the same way. That they'd all be good, and honestly, I should have preferenced all three of them, and that's something that I've been attacked over a lot. Like, oh, you didn't even preference Thumb. Like, I yeah, I know Koopa. I know I hear it. You're DMing me. I've only been recording for 53 minutes, so it hasn't been quite an hour yet. But I don't think that there's much else to talk about. We've talked about the gubernatorial race. We talked about whether or not you were pissed off at me taking the seat that it was going to go to you. Uh,
We
and
could talk about the presidential race.
I guess we could for these last couple of minutes. Do we have any announcements here or something? Like,
Well, I made an announcement not too long ago, of course, that I am running for president in the next election.
any ideas as to who your VP might be? I know that you
Here's
talked about this before, that you were trying to juggle both the Federalists and the Greens, but now with
Yeah, but that's not really a thing anymore.
with the Greens out of the picture, who's your ideal, and who do you think you're gonna go with? I think
Uh,
the
it,
answers to both.
it depends. There's a few names that I could think of. Jimmy, of course, the reason why I declared is because he's not going to do that. Originally, Jimmy was going to be our presidential candidate, but he's decided against that, which is why I declared today. But I, it's still not necessarily clear if it will be a Democratic Alliance and Federalist ticket, or if it will be just a Democratic Alliance ticket, but it will probably be a ticket with the Federalist Party.
And
But if not, there are still some other people who I could choose. I don't want to necessarily give any names away now.
yeah, I was going to say, I think I have a good idea of who your ideal person is, but the thing is that they're not eligible, right? If you know who.
Yeah, that's true. There is a very strong candidate. Should we just say the current Speaker of the House would have been a very good vice presidential candidate, but not
But he
that
does
one.
not have enough posts right now. It's one.
Yeah, that's the issue. And I mean, you could try it. I did manage to get Beeman. He was nowhere near the requirement of 100 posts to be House, and I did manage to get him to get his posts up high enough to run for House. But the thing is that it's 500 to be vice president.
Mostly through the NPC elections, right? Or at least
Yeah,
actually.
but it's not. It's 100 for House. It's 500 for vice president and president. So
And how many does Cow have? I thought he had more than
he
500.
has like 200 something.
Really?
Yeah. You'd think he has more, but he doesn't.
Yeah, it just feels like he
I don't know, I can check right now. Oh, no, he's actually up to 339. Maybe he's actually getting there.
And
But the thing is that I don't think I shouldn't pick a vice presidential candidate who, who may or may not be eligible for the sake of the stability of our nation.
yeah. And before I end off, because I'm going to have to go here, Koopa, do you have any announcements at all, or any specific things? Are you on running for the Chamber of Delegates in the next election?
Oh yeah, I did announce that. But yeah, vote Koopa for governor December 2020, or else I will scream at you. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Well, I don't think that there's much else to talk about here, so I think that will wrap up our first guest panel. Hopefully it wasn't too terrible. If it was, you can yell at all three of us simultaneously in the comments section of this video, or on the thread where I posted.
Someone probably will yell at us for something that we said that they probably don't like.
Probably mispronouncing their name. All right. Well.
Yeah.
So...
By the way, if Lumine's watching this, can you please tell us how to pronounce your name? Because we were having trouble with that last night.
That is.
I always pronounce it Lumi.
Please, Mr. Game Moderator or Mr. Pontifex Maximus, please tell us how your name is actually pronounced if you watch this.
All right, and I think that will end it. So, goodbye, everyone. I will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Peace.
Good.